I and I will. I am so happy that the Reverend Dr. Craig Pender has agreed to be with us tonight to share some information. We know that this can be really difficult to talk about and to actually start planning um, for the inevitable. And it's just great that he can join us to just kind of give us a little bit of ease as we start to think about um, the planning of for ourselves or for a loved one. And so we're happy to have him. Just a little bit about the Reverend Dr. Craig Pender. He is driven by an innate entrepreneurial and leadership ability that established himself as a celebrated businessman, religious, and community leader. Since 2008, Dr. Pender has been the senior pastor of the New York Worship Center, Church of Queens, New York. He is licensed in the states of Florida, New York, and Connecticut as a funeral director, and has over 27 years of experience as a funeral service practitioner, and currently serves as the managing principal of Schuler's Memorial Chapel in West Palm Beach, Florida. Dr. Pender believes that education is essential for personal, professional, and spiritual growth. He has earned a Bachelor of Science in Organizational Leadership from Nyack College, a Master of Divinity from the Theological School at Drew University, Madison, New Jersey, where he was the 2014 recipient of the Henry L. Lambden Prize for Excellence in Pastoral Leadership. Reverend Pender also earned the Doctor of Ministry degree from Drew with a concentration in congregational growth and community development. He is a member of several professional associations to include the National Funeral Directors and Morticians Association, Incorporated, the Florida Morticians Association, Incorporated, and the New York State Funeral Directors Association, Incorporated. Dr. Pender served honorably in the United States Air Force and is a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. He takes great pleasure in supporting his community through his involvement in numerous other community service organizations. Having said that, Dr. Reverend Craig Pender, please take it away.
Thank you so much, ladies, for the invitation to share with you once again. It's always a pleasure as a Kappa brother to come and share with my Delta sisters, and so Dr. Schuler, I don't know if she's going to be joining us tonight, but certainly sends her love and her regards. And so I'm going to just try to get straight to the point and give you as much information as I can. As I do so, I certainly don't want to leave anyone behind or leave anyone confused with anything that I might say. So I do have some slides that are kind of going to guide us along, and it'll also provide those of you that might be taking notes to kind of jot down some of the information you may see on your screens. Let me also say that on certain places, on a few of the slides, there will be some question marks. That is to place special emphasis on the fact that certain information changes, all right? Over time, laws change, policies change, so on and so forth, pricing changes. And so I just want to be clear that when you see some of the question marks, that is to place emphasis to help you understand from a planning perspective that some things may change from a legal, financial, or other perspective. All right. As a way of not preamble, but just as a way of protecting yourselves, let me also say this before I get into the slides. If you are thinking about or find yourself in a position where you need to, for yourself or for a loved one, meet with a funeral director to actually initiate putting together in what we call an advanced plan or pre-plan. You want to be sure that you are working with not only a licensed funeral establishment, all right? The funeral establishment must have its own license, All right, the business itself must be licensed, and that license should be visible, should be in a very conspicuous place where the public can see it. You want to make sure that the organization you're working with, if you're not working with Schuler's Memorial Chapel, that you're working with a licensed funeral establishment. Secondly, you want to make sure that whoever you are doing business with, conducting business with, or getting information from, you also want to make sure that that individual is also licensed as a funeral director as well. Okay, not someone who's been around the funeral home or who's been a family member or whatever, and just kind of have picked up some things down through the years. But you want to make sure that the individual that you are meeting with, discussing business with, is properly licensed. And then thirdly, and most importantly, in the state of Florida, you want to also make sure that the funeral establishment has a pre-need license, all right? The funeral establishment license does not give a funeral home license to make pre-arrangements available to the public without having a pre-need license. And so there are, unfortunately, we know that there are bad actors in every field of work and service. And there are some who put themselves out and they are not forthright with the public and letting them know that they do not have a license to actually engage in the practice of writing pre-need contracts. There is a financial threshold that funeral establishments in this state must meet in order to be able to offer pre-need products to the community. All right, and so you want to make sure before you do anything that the establishment is licensed as a funeral home, that they have a current and valid pre-need license, and you also want to make sure the individual that you're conducting business with, all right, is also licensed as well. All right, and so I will certainly hope that after this presentation that we at Schuler's might be able to help you in making sure that this business, this particular area of your life is taken care of properly. And then this way you don't have any concerns about legalities and those things. All right, so let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to first ask this question. Have you ever thought about your own, right? Your own, if you're thinking about this for yourself and not for a loved one, but even if this is for a loved one or someone else, maybe a parent or someone in your life that holds a special place in your life, you really want to give some thought as to your own service or talking to the individual who you may be assisting with a pre-plan. And ask them, what do you think? What are your thoughts about end of life? Should you transition? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Just what are your thoughts? How do you see this service being carried out? How do you want your life to be celebrated? And what should that include? All right, we should not assume that everybody wants to be buried. All right, you should not assume that people are adverse to cremation. All right, and so you want to think about this. Also, as you're thinking about this for yourself, as you may be talking to a loved one or a friend who may be thinking of putting an advanced plan together for themselves, cremation, especially amongst African Americans, was something that was kind of taboo. African Americans tend to shy away from cremation years ago, and that has changed dramatically. A number of more and more people of color are being cremated these days, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with the cost of cemetery space these days. All right, so cremation is getting more and more popular for folks who are concerned about the environment and things of that sort. Tend to maybe incorporate cremation or what we are now calling green burials, and not using chemicals and things that pollute the earth and that kind of thing. So when you think about yourself, your ideologies, your faith, all right, you're just being true to yourself and how you want your life to be celebrated. You want to just think about these things. What are your thoughts about burial? What about cremation? What about being entombed in a mausoleum, which is an above ground encasement? All right, you don't want to go in the ground. You don't want to be cremated. You might want to purchase a mausoleum or a crypt in a mausoleum, all right, and having an above ground entombment. Those are the various options that are available as it relates to what we call disposition, all right. Then there are those who don't want to have the traditional service, all right. Have a memorial service, have a party, rent out my favorite restaurant and just have my family and friends gather there, rather than going to a church or to a temple or some house of worship. So this is very personal, right? And it's something that you really have to give some serious thought to. All right. And your service at end of life really does not have to be dictated, or those decisions are left to be made by other persons. All right. This is why it's so important, all right, to make sure that you have this conversation, you have a chance to do some reflection, all right, have some prayer, all right, maybe talk with your pastor and your family and just really get a sense as what do you think is going to be the best way for your life to be celebrated. All right. And so I have at the bottom of this slide a very important statement here. And it is this: don't leave this for your family to decide. All right. All right. Don't leave this for your family to decide. Tell them what you want. All right. That's very important. In my office, I hear the chatter around the conference room table often. Where I hear, loved ones saying to one another, "What do you think mom would like this? Do you think dad would have liked that?" You hear them going, kind of volleying back and forth, not really sure what to do or what decision to make. All right, and so you can alleviate and take that pressure off of your loved ones when you jot down what you want, when go into a full-fledged pre-plan or an advanced plan for yourself, and you make all of those decisions yourself, and it makes it a lot easier, all right, for your family in that process by not having to make all of those weighty decisions. Okay, now there are some benefits to pre-planning that you want to be mindful of. All right, the first one is it provides peace of mind, all right, that comes with making your wishes known. All right, you have peace of mind that no one has to decide for you what you would have wanted. You're going to make that clear. All right, number two, as I just stated, it relieves your loved ones of making the decisions at a very difficult time of their initial grief. All right, it relieves them of making these most difficult decisions, all right, when they're grieving. And this is critical. It's very important. All right. Number three, when you make your own plans and take care of this business yourself, you have confidence that informed and thoughtful decisions have been made about your funeral service provider, all right, and your choice of services and cost and all of what's involved, all right? Do your loved ones know what funeral home you might want to service you, all right? Or do you know who your funeral directors are in your local area? Have you had a chance to meet them, see their facilities, get to understand what their philosophy is as it relates to how they offer their services and products to the community? The funeral director in your area, do they support the community? Are they an intricate part of the community, or are they, another business that has the bottom line kind of mentality and takes and does not give back? All right, so you want to know who your funeral director is and kind of get a sense of what they have to offer and how have they blended themselves in the community and thereby giving you a sense that you are not necessarily going to be in the hands of strangers. All right, that's very important too, that you know who will be caring for your remains, who it is that will be guiding your family through that most difficult time. Then, of course, one of the most important aspects or benefits of advanced planning is that there are a tremendous amount of potential cost savings that can be realized. And I'll see a little bit more about that as we go through some of the more subsequent slides. All right, here's the idea, family. The average cost for a funeral in the United States these days is somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. All right, depending on your geographical area. All right, and that $8,000 to $10,000 may not include the cost for your choices or selection at a cemetery. All right, in my home state of New York, it's not uncommon for a cemetery the cost to purchase a grave and to have that grave open to be somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000. All right, for cemetery space. This is in the Northeast. Okay. My parents are originally from North Carolina, and growing up and going to funerals there as a youngster coming along, I remember conversation about graves costing just a few $100s, opening, closing, maybe being $100. Well, that has changed dramatically. And to be totally forthright with you, so you can understand just how important this is, the cemetery portion of a funeral arrangement these days could actually, and most often is, the most expensive component of the entire arrangement. Okay, what you're going to have to pay to the cemetery could literally end up being the most expensive component of the entire arrangement. And so you look at basic goods and services for an average service being $8,000 to $10,000. Then you got to tack on, in South Florida, easily $4,000 to $6,000 for a cemetery space. Now you're looking, anywhere from 12 to maybe $14,000. All right, and so if you have not put resources aside, or if you're not adequately insured, or have the disposable income set aside for this, all right, then the expectation is, if you're thinking of a traditional service, is your family members will now have the responsibility of raising thousands of dollars, within a matter of days, okay, within a matter of days, all right. There used to be a time where funeral homes would do in-house financing and things of that nature. Y'all remember there was a time when our word was bond, all right? When folks had a handshake, and our grandmothers and grandfathers would say to the funeral director, don't worry, Mr. Pender, I'm going to be here, and each week I'm going to pay 10 or 15, $20 and until we take care of this. And that was how our business was done. And those and our four parents, they honored their word, and they would go and they would pay those bills. Funeral director will have the service, family could pay it off over time. Well, those days, my brothers and sisters, are long gone. Those days are long gone, I'm sorry to say, but society is such now where we're not able to do that kind of business anymore, simply because people just don't come back and take care of that. All right. And so that's just a reality that we have to deal with. So when you're talking about this, when you get a sense of what's involved, what's it costs, all right, what are the costs involved, that then helps you to do your work and due diligence from a financial perspective. How do I pay for this? All right. When you look at this in juxtaposition to your insurance coverage, for those of you who have life insurance, all right, or if you're planning to purchase life insurance, or if you have life insurance policies that might be getting ready to expire, and you're thinking about if you need to maintain a certain level of insurance or not. Well, when you take care of these type of arrangements, that really also helps you to take care of what you might be spending where insurance is concerned, all right, or thinking about the amount of insurance that might be necessary for you to take care of this business while also making sure your family is able to maintain their quality of life. All right. And so that too is an area, insurance planning. I'm not a licensed agent in the state of Florida. The state of Florida will not allow licensed funeral homes to have an insurance license. That is something I did in my home state. And so I'm very knowledgeable about the insurance aspect of this and how to go about deciding what type of coverage and how much coverage one should have. I can help you have that conversation. And then of course you can speak with your insurance agent, all right, to make whatever adjustments, all right, that you might need to do. All right, but this is the point of getting this information. It helps you to understand what the costs are, how you're going to pay for it, and then how you work all of that out, all right, based on your financial resources, all right, and things of that sort. All right, local cemeteries. All right, here we're looking at a couple of cemeteries in the West Palm Beach area that we frequent. And as I mentioned, there are some question marks here under one of the cemeteries, which is Royal Palm Memorial Gardens. Royal Palm is owned by a conglomerate, a major corporation that has purchased a number of funeral homes and cemeteries around the country. They are one of several conglomerates who are in that business of buying funeral homes, and they kind of shift their model from what I would call a relational business model to a more transactional. And so because they are corporate owned, of course, their philosophy is more of a corporate philosophy, whereas Glenwood Cemetery in our community is owned by a family. All right. And so just to let you know how pricing change and how things can change from one time to the next. Back in 2002, at Royal Palm, if you needed to purchase a grave space there, if it was your desire to purchase a grave space there, you would easily be looking at spending between $4,000 and $6,000. All right, back in 2002, that has changed. All right, their pricing has gone up a little bit since then. All right, you're going to be looking more around the $6,000 mark. All right, Glenwood Cemetery back in 2020, they had a grave package which was $19.95 back in 2020, and for the $19.95 you would get the grave, the cost to open and close that grave, all right, the outer container or grave liner, and of course the cemetery tent, the chairs, and the full setup. You got all of that as a package for $19.95. Today in 2020, that package is $22.95. It's gone up a couple of $100. All right, just so that you can see that. All right, and so each year between January, and let me say around between January to April, we start to get revised price lists from the cemeteries informing us of whatever their increases may have been. Now, just as you can meet with your local funeral director to make arrangements, to pay in advance, or to set aside in advance your arrangements, you can do that same thing at the cemetery. All right, so if you identify a cemetery where you feel this is where you want to be your resting place, you can contact them and make arrangements there too, all right, to purchase property in advance. And when you do that, you're able to lock in the current price, all right, and then you can pay off that balance over time. All right, so that is where you begin to experience the financial savings, okay? Because again, as I just mentioned, Glenwood, for example, if you would have purchased the grave in advance from Glenwood in 2020, you would have purchased that grave for $19.95. Well, today, to purchase that same grave, you would have to pay $22.95. So you see there's a few $100 difference, an increase that is now being realized for those who did not make that purchase, all right, in 2020. And that's the reality that you have with all of the cemeteries. They are subject to go up at any time. And so the sooner you purchase property, all right, and this is something, let me just say this about cemetery property. If you have a large family here, if you're married, if you have children, or if South Florida is your home and you don't plan on relocating anytime soon, you might want to think about maybe purchasing as a family a plot of graves. All right, a plot of graves. A plot is an area of multiple graves. It could 2 or more graves can be considered a plot. All right, and one of the questions that we are asked often when families are meeting with us to take care of a loved one who has recently transitioned, oftentimes when we start our conversation about the cemetery or where this position is going to take place, families ask us, well, Dr. Pender, can you ask the cemetery when you speak to them if we can find a space next to where our grandmother is, or I have a sister or a brother or another loved one that was previously buried at the same cemetery, and we'd like to find something as close as we can to that individual. Well, sometimes where luck is on our side, if you want to call it that, and we can find something in close proximity. But if there's been a number of years that have passed since one loved one, since the last funeral in your family, chances are you might not be able to secure a space next to or in close proximity to where another loved one may be resting. So it's a good idea as a family to think about purchasing together a plot of graves that are side by side, all right, that are earmarked, all right, for certain individuals. In this way, when those spaces are needed, they are available, and you don't have the concern about not being able to have a resting place all right, next to your loved ones. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that I address that that point as well. All right, so getting ready. What do I need to do to get ready to start actually putting an advanced plan together to make a pre-need? Well, one of the
Dr.
first,
Pender,
yes,
I'm sorry, can I ask a question real quickly?
sure.
So the cemeteries that you were speaking about were on the north end of the county. Um, I know this is, but what kind of prices are we looking at for like the south end, like
Okay,
Delray,
yeah, same
Boynton?
same thing. Well, let me tell you this is very interesting because I just this week I had a family in the office. We have a service coming this weekend, and they had loved ones buried at Boynton Memorial Gardens, right? And if you don't know, you don't know. But Boynton Memorial Gardens does not have any more land graves. They don't have any more land graves there at that cemetery. They only have, last week, they had remaining only 2 crypts in their mausoleum. However, there was a third party that purchased some crypts in that mausoleum where you can, families can purchase space from them. Of course, you're going to purchase them at a premium. All right, so in the South End, Boynton Beach area, you know, you have the smaller cemeteries like Sarah Sims, and then in Lake Worth, you have some of those smaller cemeteries that were kind of carved out, all right, because of racism, all right, where our folks, our people were not able to be buried. They weren't allowed to be buried at some of the larger cemeteries until, you know, some of those barriers were broken. But most of the cemeteries that you're going to see on the South End, they're mostly owned by these corporations that I'm making reference to. All right, and sometimes you will see funeral homes, all right, that are on those that share space on in those cemeteries. There are full service funeral homes that also operate cemeteries, and there again, you're going to be looking at that price point, all right, on the higher end, anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000. All right, is where you have to budget. All right, for that. Delray Beach, Delray Memorial is owned by the city of Delray. All right, they have 2 price points, one for residents, all right, within what they have on their city map, folks who are designated as being in the city residents. And then they have some in Delray that are designated as out of city limits. All right, and so if you're within the city, all right, you can get a grave at Delray Memorial at one price. I think it's $11.75. And if you're out of that boundary line, and they look up your address and tell you which you qualify for, the grave is a few $100s more. But you must be a resident of Delray Beach in order to purchase property there. All right, or you must have an immediate family member already buried there. Right, otherwise you cannot purchase, all right, a grave at that cemetery. All right, and let me say this, that's a great question. Let me just add this too for who this might interest, may be of interest. For those of you who are veterans or maybe married to veterans, the veteran cemetery is also a very good option. All right, our local veteran cemetery is located in Lake Worth. All right, it's called South Florida National Cemetery. And what some people may not know about veteran cemeteries is this: burial space is not only for the veteran, all right, but the veteran's spouse can also be interred at a national cemetery at absolutely no cost to the family. All right, so if the spouse of a veteran predeceases her husband, all right, or if the wife is the veteran and then her husband is not the veteran, all right, if the non-vet were to pass away first, then the spouse of the veteran can be interred at the National Cemetery at no cost. The spouse gets the same benefits as the veteran. Then, of course, upon the veteran's passing, the veteran is laid to rest alongside his or her spouse. But here is another important fact about veteran cemetery. All right, the veteran is married, and then the first spouse passes away. That spouse can be buried in the National Cemetery. The veteran remarries. And then the second spouse passes away. Well, guess what? that spouse too can be buried at the veteran cemetery. And that goes on as many times as the veteran marries. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, makes no difference. Each time, if the veteran outlives his or her spouses, each spouse is able to be interred at the National Cemetery at no cost. All right. And so that's a very important piece to know. If you yourself are a veteran, or if you're married to a veteran, all right, you want to know about that and what you need to do. As I was getting ready to say on the slide that's before us, is you want to have available certain biographical information, all right, that is required for the completing of a death certificate and other documentation relative to funeral services. And that includes information like the social security number, date of birth, your occupation, when you may have worked, all right, that kind of information is what we would collect at that time. All right, then of course, there are certain legal documents you want to have accessible to whomever might be assisting with making these arrangements or carrying your wishes out. All right, not so much for the funeral arrangement, but for other estate business that might come up where these documents might be necessary. All right, then of course, there are some financial documents that we have listed there. All right, now pay attention to under financial documents. I also have passwords to you for your ATM cards and things of that nature. All right, many times, individual passes away and they have resources that would be accessible, but their loved ones don't know what their passwords are, and they can't access those funds. Another interesting thing is with your bank accounts and insurance policies and things of that sort, you want to be sure that you have named a beneficiary, all right, to receive those assets. Far too often, we are helping families work through the concern that they have when they learn that resources are there, but no beneficiary was named. All right, and now this becomes an estate issue where you're going to have to go to surrogate court, all right, and create that kind of a thing in order for those assets to be divvied up and dispersed and distributed to loved ones. So it's very important that on your insurance policies, on your bank accounts, your retirement benefits and things of that nature, that you have, all right, the beneficiaries there who you want to receive those resources, and also have, jot it down somewhere in your strong box or in your safety deposit box. You want to have your passwords and other important information so that your business can be handled and be transacted without a lot of interruption. Here's the thing, just a quick note. I have been in funeral service, again, almost 30 years. Prior to coming to South Florida to work with Dr. Schuler, I managed one of the largest funeral homes in the country in Jamaica, Queens. We handled there at that office on average 500 to 600 funerals a year. That's a lot of work. All right, and I have seen practically anything that you could think of as it relates to end of life issues and family drama and all of what goes with chaos that is created when business is not in order. All right, and I have seen numerous times where assets were available but not accessible, leaving family members no choice but to make decisions that their loved one may not have wanted, such as a direct cremation or things of that sort, because they could not get their hands on resources. Now, in the city of New York, each of the 5 boroughs has one surrogate court, one surrogate judge, and you have millions of people living in one borough. And so if you find yourself in New York City having to go to a probate court to handle one's estate, it could be years before you get a court date because there's so many people ahead of you. And I have seen people lose homes, lose property, have paid mortgages for years, all right, but because they could no longer pay the property tax, because all of the monies were locked up, because no beneficiary was named or no body was listed as the beneficiary. Money was there, but not accessible. And I have seen family lose their homes because loved ones could not afford to keep the property taxes up while they were waiting for their opportunity to go to court for the judge to make a decision as to who is to receive, all right, this property or these assets. So it's very important that you put people that you trust, responsible people. May not be your children, all right, may not be your children. And if it is your children, it may not be the oldest child, all right, it might be the middle child, it might be the youngest. Doesn't mean you have to write them out and leave them without anything, but you want to make sure you leave the right person, the most responsible person, a person you can trust, all right, to handle this most important business. You want to make sure that you have someone named, all right, on in these areas so that it doesn't tie up things and cause major chaos. And then putting your family in a position to make decisions that you yourself may not have wanted, all right, and having to provide a service so that your remains can be disposed of in some way, all right, because all the monies and all the resources and things are tied up. All right, so just make sure that you take a picture of this screen and jot down some of that information, because this stuff needs to be, I recommend that every family, every individual put together your personal binder, a 3-ring binder where you have all of these documents, all this information in one place, all right? And then you want to give this binder a copy of it, not the original, but you want to give a copy of this binder to the person that you're going to trust to handle your affairs. And then the original binder, you want to put that in either a strong box, in a safe, or in a safe deposit box. And the reason I'm saying you want to put this original binder with all this important information in a safe place, because if at such time in the future that you have a change of heart and you want to change your beneficiary, or you want to change the person who is going to, life happens, people move away. The person who you might appoint to take care of your business, this person might predecease you. And then you have to put someone else in that space. And so you want to make sure where these original documents are, that you have the ability to access them and then to change, right, as you need to change, make edits, make adjustments as you need to do so, all right, and make sure that your original documents are in a place where they cannot be forged, they cannot be changed without your knowledge, all right, and that kind of thing, all right. And if you need to make adjustments and changes, you have the ability to do that. And then, of course, you can make copies as may be necessary and give that new copy, that new binder, all right, to the person who might be in charge of handling your estate and your affairs. All right, so here's the idea. When you're ready to actually move forward and putting a pre-need in place or an advanced plan for yourself, that will be done in one of 2 ways. If you are receiving Medicaid benefits, then the type of contract that you will be required to put in place is an irrevocable Medicaid contract. And the reason for that is when you're receiving Medicaid, the government is going to subsidize your health care. And what the government does not want to see happen is this. They don't want you to put money aside for a funeral arrangement while they help you with your medical care. And then at the time of your death, all right, your loved ones say, you know what, I know we got a $20,000 funeral arrangement here, but we're going to change this and do a $1,000 cremation and spend the rest of the money on ourselves or as we see fit. Well, the government says if you're on Medicaid and you put money aside for a funeral arrangement, it must be an irrevocable Medicaid contract, which means you can never get a refund. We can never give you the money back, all right? It can never happen, all right? If you are not receiving Medicaid, then of course your contract will be revocable, which means you can cancel it at any time, all right, with no questions asked, all right? And then in the state of Florida, a certain portion, the majority, I should say, of your resources will be refunded back to you, all right? And that's important to know because, again, life happens, and sometimes, for instance, a tornado, an act of God, and God forbid, your roof is blown off your house, and you don't have adequate insurance, and you need to get a new roof. Well, we have sometimes family needing to cancel their prearrangements to take care of some other important business because life happened. All right, and you want to know that it is in fact possible to get a refund if that may be necessary, so long as you're not receiving Medicaid and your contract is not irrevocable. All right, You want to see there that on the slide here, it says powered by FSI. All right. First Florida Trust is the entity, all right, who maintains the pre-needs with we at Schuler's Memorial Chapel write. We are never we don't want to be in a situation where we have access to anybody's money. All right. We never want to be able to have access to money. All right, we never want our reputation, our character, or anything to come into question because of the mishandling of pre-need funds. All right, and so FSI is our fiduciary. All right, when you set up a pre-need, your monies will be placed on deposit in an account. All right, where FSI will be monitoring it, and they will be the custodians of all of the resources. All right, and they will only release monies to us at such time as we present to them a certified death certificate proving, all right, that an account holder has passed away. That is the only time monies will be released to Schuler's Memorial Chapel so that we can pay, all right, for the arrangements that have put in place. All right, we like having a fiduciary. I think this is the best way, all right, to handle this kind of business. It protects us, it protects our reputation, but more importantly, it protects the consumer. All right, and you as a consumer, you never have to have any concern about where will my money be available when I need it. All right. Again, there have been some bad actors in funeral service who have written pre-needs. All right, and folks thought that business was in place, only to find out death would occur and the money was gone. All right, there was no money to be had, and just leaving families in a very devastated situation. Funeral homes close down. Funeral homes go out of business. All right, unfortunately for various reasons, and so this is why you want to make sure that you are working with an established funeral home that's properly licensed as a funeral establishment, and also having a pre-need license, all right, and who also has licensed funeral directors in their employ, all right. And I also think that funeral homes that are owned and operated by licensed individuals are the best ones to do business with, all right. And so again, we're licensed, we're the owners, we're the operators, we're intricately involved in the day-to-day business, all right. And I think that helps in making sure the overall experience is what it should be, all right. And so you want to make sure, ask those questions. If you're not dealing with Schuler's and you live in a part of the county or the state where you want to have this conversation with another funeral home, by all means ask them, are the owners here licensed, all right? Or you just own this business and you have licensed people in your employ, right? Ask those questions. Ask to see the licenses, okay? Ask to see the licenses, the establishment license, the pre-need license, and the individual director's license. You want to make sure that those licenses are in place, that they are current, they are not suspended, all right? You want to make sure, all right, that you're dealing with a reputable, responsible, all right, and duly licensed funeral home and with licensed personnel, okay? All right, so frequently asked questions. Let me run through this real quick, and then I want to make sure I give you all some time to ask some questions that I may not have in the slides. Here's the first one. Are the funds in my pre-need trust account safe? All right, I think I just answered that. Your money is absolutely safe because we will have the monies placed on deposit with a fiduciary. All right, there is the state statute, all right, the state of Florida in chapter 497, all right, in Florida statute 100. If you want to look up that statute yourself and educate yourself on the pre-need laws in the state of Florida, all right, there is the information there where you can look at that, all right, and read about that in your own time. But when you're working with Schuler's Memorial Chapel or another funeral home that also uses a fiduciary, all right, you can have confidence that your money is safe, all right. Number two, who controls the funds in my pre-need trust account? All right, again, I mentioned a little bit about that as well. All right, okay, and so you are in charge of your monies, all right? You are in charge of your monies, all right? And then, of course, you see the question marks there in red. You have a revocable account, all right, which means that you're absolutely in charge at all times. And if you need to cancel, your plan, or if you're relocating and you need to have your pre-need transferred to another state, or at least have the funds transferred to another state, where you can then open up a new pre-need account in that state based on the laws of that state. We can help you with doing a transfer, but you're always 100% in charge, all right, of your resources. All right. If I'm applying for Medicaid, may I set aside funds for my funeral expenses? All right. And again, the answer to that question is yes. If you are applying for and or are already receiving Medicaid, you can certainly set up an advanced plan for yourself. As a matter of fact, let me just say this. It is not uncommon for folks who are applying for Medicaid to do what's called a spend down, where they have to spend down assets that they may have in order to qualify for Medicaid. All right. All right. There are times when individuals, because of their health situation, they need to apply for Medicaid benefits. And in order to become eligible, they need to do a spend down. In other words, they have too much money in the bank. All right. And they have to spend it down so that their income now falls within the threshold that will make them eligible for Medicaid. All right. And so when you find yourself in that situation, or if you know someone in that situation, one of the ways the IRS, one of the things the IRS will let you do is to use that money, that spend down money, to set up an advanced plan for yourself, all right, so that your funeral expenses can be taken care of. And then this way you can be approved for Medicaid, all right, and then you don't have to worry about how your funeral will be paid for. All right, if my account is revocable and there is a balance left after the funeral expenses have been paid, where does the overage go? The overage, all right, in the state of Florida, some of the overage belongs to the funeral home. All right, some of the overage based on merchandise and things can be held by the funeral home. Again, that's based on the Florida statute. And if you want to read that statute, just go to read the statute. I gave you the information, and you can read and get an understanding as to what that really means. Or you can call me in the office, and I'll be more than happy to explain to you what that means. But outside of that, yes, if there's an overage, you are able to receive those monies as a refund. All right, as a refund again. But the state of Florida, there is some language in their statute where certain resources can be held or kept, all right, by the funeral home, all right? And again, that's something that I can address individually. Or you can go to the statute and read that and get that understanding on your own time. All right, same question. Okay, what happens if the funeral home goes out of business? Again, this is why you want to have a pre-need done with a funeral director that's using a fiduciary, a third party. Because if the funeral home burns to the ground, goes out of business, or is closed down, all right, for improprieties or whatever, all right, your money is not in the funeral home's custody, all right, it's on deposit with the third party fiduciary, all right, and this is, again, that's a very good reason why you want to be working with a funeral home, all right, where they're having your resources placed on deposit with a third party fiduciary. This way, no matter what happens to that business, all right, for whatever reason, all right, your money is held outside of that business, all right, and then you're able to access it and transfer it to another funeral home if that is something you need to do, all right, or you can use it if you relocate. As I mentioned earlier, we can assist with having those resources transferred to another funeral home wherever you're relocating to, and a new pre-plan can be established based on the laws of that particular locale. All right. If you're taking a picture or just writing down, there's some information there concerning, all right, the entity in the state of Florida that regulates, all right, and supervises licensed funeral homes. All right. All right. The Board of Funeral, Cemetery, and Consumers. All right. It's in Tallahassee. Their telephone number is there. All right. And that's a good resource to have. All right, if you want to check on the licensure, all right, of a funeral director or a funeral home, you can do that. If you want to check out the history to see if the funeral director or the funeral home that you are doing business, have they been in trouble with the state? Have they broken some laws? All right, have they done some things that they should not have done? Have they been disciplined? All right, because they're not running their business properly. All right, you can go to the state and you can find all that kind of information out. All right, and you certainly want to work with a funeral director that operates at a high level of integrity. All right, and you want to be working with professionals who are not breaking the laws. All right, and having to be disciplined. All right, because they are not conducting their business accordingly. All right, and I'm very grateful that Schuler's Memorial Chapel has an impeccable reputation. All right, an impeccable reputation. We have no issues with being reprimanded, with being in trouble, having to go on trial. All right, and all of that. And I pray that you all continue to pray for us, that we can continue to operate at a high level. All right, and we can serve our community, all right, at a high level of excellence. All right, so again, if you want to check out what's going on, all right, or what the history of the funeral director in your community has been, you can use that resource, all right, to do that. All right, here's some information how you can contact our office. Our website is there. All right, there's an email address there. If you want to jot that down, I'm more than happy to take your emails, all right, take your telephone calls. Happy if you want to stop by and take a tour of our facility. If you have not been to our funeral home before, we'll be glad to give you that tour, all right, to meet you personally, shake your hand, introduce ourselves to you, get to know you, you get to know us, all right, and we are more than happy to assist you on a personal level as it relates to any more information you might need or any other help that might be helpful to you as you think about this most important business, you know, relative to end of life. All right, this is not something that we really want to face. We don't enjoy having to talk about it, but it is a responsibility that we owe to ourselves and to our families to make sure that we just face this, all right, and make every effort, all right, to make sure that our affairs are in order so that we do not contribute to the grief and to the anguish of our loved ones. And then for those of you who are caring for elderly parents, grandparents, or you might be a caregiver of some kind, of someone who may be going through a season of illness, whatever the case might be, to help yourself, all right, to make sure things are in place, all right. You want to have these conversations. And again, I'm more than happy to discuss individually your particular needs or situation and help you to know what steps you should take, all right, to make sure that all your business, all right, is in order. All right, so listen, that's all of what I have to say tonight. I don't know if that covers, I would hope that I've covered most, if not all, of any questions you may have had, but I do have some time where I can take some questions from anyone if there are any.
Dr. Pender, there's a question that was asked. Is the account with FFT covered by FDIC?
FDIC. Yes, there is some coverage there where I don't think anyone is going to have a $250,000 funeral arrangement, right? Where FDIC accounts are usually insured up to $250,000. But yes, FSI is insured, bonded, and yes, monies are protected that way.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. All right, so let's say I've decided to make these arrangements for myself, and I can contact you and say, okay, how much is this? I can just write you a check, and then that money, those monies will be put in the
FSI, yeah,
FSI,
into a trust account.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And so even if you go out of business, even if I move, that can be moved to
Yes, to
another
another funeral.
state.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
another
that's
funeral
correct.
home?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, because all of our lives are fluid, right? All of our lives are fluid, and though we have some indication, we have some idea where we plan on being, all right, in the near future, life happens, all right? You know, life happens, and if there is a life change that would make it necessary for one to relocate, all right, to another state or even to another country, yes, monies are portable, All right, monies are portable. And specifically with irrevocable Medicaid accounts. All right, if you're, so long as you're moving within the United States, again, wherever you're going, we will assist you when you make contact with a new funeral director in that new location. We will assist in having a new irrevocable account set up in that state. All right. All right. And yes, to your point, if for some reason Schuler's Memorial Chapel were to decide to no longer do business, if we close down or whatever the case might be, your monies are not on deposit in any of our business accounts. We have no access to the money. All right. And that's just to be, and that's the best way, okay, to make sure that the consumer is protected. All right. So there's no opportunity. There's no opportunity for the mismanagement of funds. All right. And so that's the way we want it. We would have, even if the state of Florida did not kind of mandate this, it would be the model that we would still follow. All right. It would be the model that we would still follow. We would still have a third party trust, all right, or fiduciary involved where pre-need is concerned, because too many bad things have happened. All right. Too many people have been left in terrible situations because of folks with poor ethics. All right. Poor ethics, or maybe some life event happened for them. They just found them, the funeral director found him or herself in a bad situation, and they thought, I can take some money from here and I'll put it back. They meant well, but things just didn't materialize. All right. Whatever the reason or the rationale, the bottom line is it is this family, the community, who is left holding the bag. All right. And so I know I don't want to ever be in a situation like that. We don't want our business to be in a situation like that. I don't ever want our integrity to be questioned. And I certainly don't ever want to be in a situation where someone's money has been mismanaged. All right. So this is a win-win for everyone, to make sure that when you're putting monies aside for this most important business, you want to make sure the money's going to be there when it's needed.
Okay. So if you've entered into that with one funeral home and that was the set price, will that cover, like if you move or if that funeral home goes out of business, will they honor that? Or will there may be some other charges incurred?
Okay, well, I will answer that question with two responses. Let's first stick with the funeral home that you started with. So if you make a pre-arrangement with us today, all right, and we didn't need to use those funds until 23 years from now, that funeral service has to be provided at the cost you would have paid 20 years prior. All right, the state of Florida does not allow us to charge whatever increases may have happened over that period of time. All right, so yes, the funeral will be provided at the time that it was written up for. All right, now, if for whatever reason you need to relocate, all right, and you're going to another state, all right, then only the monies that are on deposit is portable. All right, and then you have to establish a new account based on whatever the cost basis is at that new location.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pender. Are there any more questions? You can come off of mute if you need to.
I saw one earlier with regards to, you kind of covered it, just wanted, I don't know whether or not the person heard the answer. When you said traditional and non-traditional services, what is the distinction between those things?
Okay, traditional service, all right, if I can speak from the African-American perspective, all right, I can't see all who's on this chat on my screen, all right, but let me just speak from the African-American perspective. In the African-American community, what we know to be a traditional funeral would usually be a service that consists of some form of visitation or viewing of one's loved one. All right, whether that's the day before, all right, if you're doing a 2-day service, or prior to the formal service, if you're doing a 1-day service arrangement. All right, so there's usually the viewing of our loved one's remains. And then after the viewing, the wake or visitation, those words are interchangeable. Then we have the formal service. And that service would either take place in a funeral chapel or it takes place at a house of worship or some other venue. That's the formal service. And then after that service, we will then continue on to the place of disposition, whether that be a cemetery for earth burial or entombment in a mausoleum or knit or crypt, all right, or if it's cremation, then arrangements are made to take the decedent to the respective crematory at the appropriate time. That's a traditional service. A non-traditional service would be more like a direct cremation with a memorial service, or a direct cremation with no service at all. All right, another non-traditional would be what's called a direct burial, where there's no preparation of remains, there's no viewing of remains, there's no service of any kind. We're just making arrangements for the decedent to be buried at the cemetery that has been set aside for that. That's called a direct burial. Okay, those would be what we call non-traditional services.
There was one more thing that I thought was interesting. You kind of said it, the green burial. What is that?
Okay, green burials are folks who, and this is something that's also very fluid, all right? New technologies and things are being developed, all right, in this current season that we're in. And you have some folks that in life, they're vegans, they're vegetarians, they eat clean. We know that language, right? Well, then there are some folks who are concerned about the environment, all right? And there are folks that are concerned about embalming chemicals, preservative chemicals, and some of the fluids and things that are used in the preservation, sanitation, and disinfection of human remains in preparation for funeral services, where they don't want those chemicals, all right, or those substances, all right, to be placed into the earth, all right, or to have any contact with the earth. And so they decide to go with a green burial, all right, a green burial. Some people consider cremation a green burial, all right. And so some of our product manufacturers have created, all right, preservative chemicals that don't have, for instance, formaldehyde, or chemicals that might be toxic chemicals that would affect negatively the soil or the earth. All right. Then you have some folks. There is this new form of cremation that is being developed, which is hydrolysis, which is cremation not by fire, but cremation by high temperatured water process. All right, there's this apparatus, this new type of cremation equipment that's being built, where one's remains are cremated using hydrolysis. It's a chemical and water type of process. All right, for folks who have been averse to being cremated by fire. All right, but they also don't want to be buried. They don't want to be embalmed. All right, and so there's this water type of cremation that's now coming on the scene. It's not everywhere, all right, yet. It's not all that popular. Not many people know about it, but it is something, maybe the next 20 years that will be, maybe it'll be the way to go, down the road. But it is something that's coming to the fore. And then you have some folks who own their own property, their own land. And they seek permission where permission is required to be buried on their own family property, unembalmed and what have you. And so that is a form of green burial. There are some green cemeteries in certain parts of the country where they bury remains that have not been embalmed, or where there's no chemicals and that kind of thing. And you're going to have this natural kind of burial. All right, so that stuff is really based on geography, all right, and locale. And if all of these green options are available, it really depends on where you're living at the time.
Very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow. Are there any more questions? Anything else that we can answer for anyone?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I live in Derry. I was born and raised in Delray, and I came in on the last part of the conversation. He was talking about family burial in Delray. So can he go back and speak about that?
Yes, I'd
What
be happy to.
specifically did you want to know about that? Miss Veronica, what specifically did you want to know about burials in Delray?
Oh, I cut myself off. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, I thought I cut myself. Well, I never been to the city to talk about funeral arrangements. Well, I did one time many years ago for my mom, but I wanted to know what is the new, is anything changed for as price wise and going about doing it?
Okay. All right. Let me thank you for the question. Here is the most recent information I know about Delray Memorial. Of course, you know the cemetery is operated, owned, and maintained by the city. Okay. Now, in order to purchase any cemetery space at that cemetery, number one, you must be a resident of the city of Delray Beach, or you must have an immediate relative buried there already, such as mother, father, husband, sister, brother, someone in your immediate family. All right, your immediate family. All right, must have been buried there prior to you being able to buy property there if you do not currently reside in Delray at the time of your passing. So that's very important. All right, now here's what you want to know. Delray Cemetery is filling up. All right, they are running short of land space. All right, that's a fact. They were or are in the process of building a mausoleum. The young lady that runs the cemetery, her name is Yasmin. And I try to get updates from her periodically. And the last conversation we've had maybe last year was that the mausoleum space would be available maybe 2 years out. I don't know if the pandemic has pushed that back, where it's going to be delayed. But if you wanted to call her office, again, her name is Yasmin. She's the young lady that manages the cemetery, all right, for the city. And right now, at least the last time we were at Delray, the cost for a resident, the residential price, if you live within the city, the price to purchase a grave there is $11.75. All right, the last time we were there. And I'm saying it that way because their prices go up. Prices do change. They don't always tell us until the next time we call, right? But $11.75 is what I know it to be. All right, then of course you have to purchase your grave liner outside because they don't make those available. So we will be able to help you with that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else? You can type or you can come off mute and ask those questions. Great. I think that everybody's all right. I just want to say thank you. I definitely took away some things. Unfortunately, death has knocked on my door way too many times of late, but it's still some really good information regarding making sure I can just echo what you said about having that binder and having all that information available and not having to look for that. Had a family member who just recently passed away and had some issues trying to locate that social security number, which was, we found we needed that in order to get that death certificate. So we, definitely appreciate those things and really noted that in terms of cost, really kind of having an idea of whether you're just buy life insurance or you're just saving for that, to be able to, have those money set aside. Really appreciate that as well.
Okay.
And I thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. And let me just say one last thing about the advanced planning. It was going to be in my closing remarks. For those of you, when you're thinking about, when you realize what the cost, when you sit down with your funeral director and you come to realize what it would cost to do what your heart desires for yourself, you want to understand that when you are doing this business in advance, all right, you don't have to have all of this money up front. All right, when you establish a trust account, you only need 10% of your total arrangement. You only need 10% as a deposit. All right. So if you establish a trust for yourself, that's $5,000. All right. Then you only need $500 to actually get the trust started. All right. And then what you do then is that you'll get a coupon booklet where you can make monthly payments until such time as you pay your trust in full. So you don't have to have all of this money up front to do advanced planning. One of the benefits of doing it is that you're able to pay for it over time, all right, until it's paid up, all right? For those of you who may have old insurances that you've been paying on for years, and you're not sure if you're now at a place where you're overpaying for insurance, that's something I can look at, your policies, I can look at your payment history. I can tell you if you have paid more into that policy than you're going to get out of it, and if maybe surrendering it for the cash value is something you might want to do, so that that cash value can then perhaps pay for your arrangements in full. There are so many different ways I can help you think about how to pay, all right, for these arrangements. All right, there's so many things I can share with you or work with your insurance agent to help you make the best decision for yourself. All right, so my information is there. All right, I'm available. I'm happy to have a conversation dialogue individually, one-on-one. Just call the office, all right, and ask for me or one of the other funeral directors, and we'll be more than happy to help you, all right, along the way.
All right. Thank you so very much. I know we all got at least one little nugget of something that we can take away in trying to make these final preparations for ourselves and our loved ones. So we thank you so very much, Dr. Pender, for your time, for your knowledge, and your willingness to share that with us tonight. So on behalf of the South Palm Beach County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, we just say thank you, thank you, thank you for your time, your talents, and your willingness to share tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. All right. You know, you guys can always call on us. All right. June, you know that. Call us anytime. All right. Take good care, everybody, and thank you for listening.
All right. And just to note,